Are we live? We are live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Money Talks in 2021. I'm your host of this evening's webinar. My name is Mark Gaillard. I am the Director of Business Development for EDMS, the Canadian division. My counterpart, I know she's watching tonight down in the US, Gina Ellis. I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for investing in your time tonight to meet with us for Money Talks in 2021, where you're going to learn how to produce it, insure it, and protect it. We have a strong guest. We have strong panelists tonight that speak to each one of those silos. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. We'd love you to engage with us and ask questions. We'll address each questions after the speakers. I think that we're going to be running some polls as we go through the night. We can do a test poll right now to see how everybody's doing. I wish I could see you. This is so weird in this virtual world that we're in right now that I can't see this audience. I'm talking to a little square, but Clark, I'll let you run that first poll and let's see what response we get from our audience. Saying right now, I'm very curious.
Well, everyone says we have 63% of our participants saying that it's excellent, 31% saying good, and 6% saying okay. Here's hoping that all those who said okay will be saying excellent at the end of the webinar.
Yeah, well, that gap, as we all know, that gap between excellent and extraordinary is only about this far. So let's see if we can move some of the good towards excellent and extraordinary, and some of those who are just okay. It's our job to make sure that we put you into the good tonight. I want to welcome you all again, and I thank you. We've got amazing panelists. The president and CEO of Prosperity, David Harris, is here. From AT Financial Group, we have Amy Tong and her associate, Tero Huang. From my group at EDMS Dental, I have the engaged coaches, the director of Central Canada, Amy Drinic, Angie Drinic, my goodness, Angie Drinic, and the director of Western Canada, Karima Bapoo Mohamed, who will be our first speaker. Our first speaker tonight is an esteemed colleague of mine, Karima Bapoo Mohamed. She has over 30 years experience in our business. She's a registered dental hygienist. She has her MBA. She's been an associate clinical professor. She has traveled across the world teaching her leadership, her coaching. She's lectured in both Canada and the United States. I think the list goes on and on about this amazing woman. From EDMS Dental and the director of the EDMS Engaged team for Western Canada, I give you Karima.
Thank you so very much, Mark. And my goodness, you know, one of the best things about working at EDMS, Mark, is I get a chance to work with you. We have a lot of chuckles and giggles through the day, and what an amazing, fun journey. And talking of journeys, I want to wish a warm welcome to all our participants joining us today for this webinar, Money Talks in 2021. Welcome as we explore opportunities to create production in your practice. I'm just gonna change this view just a minute here. So there are a lot of moving parts in our dental practice when we talk about any kind of a daily operations of a practice. The question becomes, where do we invest our time and energy and track which metrics? Because unless we track the metrics, we can figure out or uncover some of the issues that could be going on so that we may correct it and actualize growth and profit today. One metric I want to speak to you today about is going to be the schedule integrity. So this is a horror picture for a lot of our owner dentists, for sure, where this empty chair with no warm body in it is a big shocker on a working schedule time of your things. So we all know empty chairs does not only mean no production, it actually means negative dollars because of the sunk costs for turning the lights on every single morning and coming in. So how do we ensure that we always have warm bodies in our chairs and no empty chairs? To that end, I'm going to speak to you today about tracking the rebooking metrics, as well as chairside conversations and a few other strategies. I'm happy to share with you a tool that I've tested and tried and proven over many, many decades on a procedure that we use, and happy to share it later on in the presentation. So with that, let's talk about the mood in the marketplace, and let's examine what is going on in here. We know that patients have deferred and delayed dental hygiene and dental treatments because of the current pandemic. And this picture epitomizes a patient who hasn't been in a practice for over a year. We all know that oral diseases get more complex and actually cumulative over time. So there is a higher endorsement and a demand for dentistry that's been delayed or deferred in there. A study done actually back in 2020 shows 5 key shifts in patients' perception of dentistry. And this was done in 2 points in time back in August of 2020 and April of 2020. And we can see that 60% of the patients actually said they were comfortable coming back to the dental practice back in August, compared to only 29 that were comfortable in coming back to the dental practice in April of 2020. The other thing we noticed too is 64% of the patients felt that the dentists know how to prevent the spread of COVID virus. In August was 64 compared to 42 in April of 2020. 65% of the patients felt, yeah, they're going to go see their dental office in the next 6 months. Gen Z, or Zoomers as we call them, everyone knows who the Zoomers are. That's a population that's born after the millennials. So they're between the ages of 6 and 24. To 81%, a whopping 81% of Zoomers says, yes, we will go back to dental practices, not only for my checkup, but actually doing any kind of dental work that's needed, compared to 69% of the boomers. So that's a difference from the Zoomers to the boomers. There was also an American Dental Association study published in December, which again shows that confidence is back in the marketplace for patients to return back to dentistry. And the most recent paper I found was from January of this year from the Clinical Translational Research, showing that yes, patients are comfortable. Now, speaking with a lot of you with our monthly touchpoint calls as your practice advisors for all our EDMS clients, we call you monthly to check the metrics. A lot of you doctors says, oh my goodness, Karima, January has not been good. We've had empty chairs and no warm bodies on it. So it begs us to answer the question, what happened? Where did all my patients go? So we know patients actually, there are uncontrollable things like patients may pass on or they move away. I love this term, they naturally float. And word of mouth is very much strong and active and alive that patients will move on a friend's recommendation. Don't you just love that shopper patient who's always looking for a cheaper deal? The chronic complainers, but 68% of our patients, 68% will not come back to us. Why? We didn't give them an opportunity. We didn't understand them. We did not make a deeper connection with these patients. And this is going to be the focus of my presentation today before I share the tool that I want to do with you in engaging patients so that we have warm bodies and no empty chairs in our practice. Anyone want to guess what is the most in-demand skill for 2021? And let's take a sip of water. My voice is dry. Aside from the 3 technological industries that we know is a sure thing for 2021, actually the top 3 growth industries are cloud computing, data analysis, and digital dashboard, all the bread and butter stuff that we do at EDMS. But the most in-demand skill for 2020 is actually the soft skills, the social intelligence for patients to actually connect with our team as well as us. It is to do with that resilience and the adaptability of being creative and rejigging and repivoting, which we've all had to. That emotional intelligence of our patients, really connecting with our patients eye to eye, despite all the heavy PPE that we're wearing. And a lot of times it's very uncomfortable. We're hot and uncomfortable with it. But creating that connection with our patients is really the key. You know, and we don't learn this in school. When my students graduate, I tell them, congratulations, you achieved all of your requirements and your competencies, and you are now worthy for entry in practice. But I hate to break it to you, that's only 15% of your success comes from that. The other 85% of your success comes from your ability to actually get people wanting your amazing technical skills. So that emotional connection piece with the patients we know will drive across the city and drive through borders to get to a clinic where they feel they're connected and anchored. Uh, Anyone want to guess which is the most electrically charged organ in the body? If you guess the brain, the answer is the heart. The heart is the most electrically charged organ in the body. So when you touch your patient's heart, and I don't mean physically go touch patients' hearts, when we emotionally connect with our patients, we actually have them coming back, and they'll bring their friends and family back so that we don't have any empty chairs in our operatory. The best thing about making emotional connection with patients is actually we'll get the best team working for us, and we'll find mentors that'll inspire us to the next level, as well as associates and partners that will join us. They'll want to join us. The word will get out. And of course, the legendary Maya Angelou quote, we've all heard it many times in different ways. People will forget what you said or what you did, but they will never, ever forget how you made them feel. It's all about, it's it's all about a feeling world. It's all about emotions. People will never, ever forget how you made them feel. So it is emotion that creates motion, and experiences that we're creating chairside really helps our patients move forward. This is again with our masks on. How do we show our smiles with our masks on? And so that eye to eye connection, the body positioning becomes so critical when we have our patients showing up. One of my girlfriends, who's actually a family physician, has her team at the hospital, at a local hospital, create create this beautiful laminated pictures of their faces and their smiling faces without their masks on to really humanize that experience for our patients. And 50%, did you know, of our patients do not talk to you about their health concerns? Why? We never gave them a chance. We never gave them an opportunity to talk to us. And because we're not good listeners, a lot of times we're interrupting them. Every 18 seconds is the interruption second there. So there is some work we can do with that. And how do we operationalize it to the chairside conversations? And what are some of the tricks and the strategies I can share with you? Let me go ahead and share with you the 8-point strategy of patient care cycle with the transfer of trust. It all begins with the doctor's chairside manners when we have the patient upright position instead of a supine position, and really making it sure that your eye level would even be better. We have patients sitting there, maybe with a hand mirror in their arms and hands, so that it's easily accessible as we co-diagnose their care. And here we go. This is the 8-step process. I won't have time to go in great detail, but just to scratch the surface and sharing with you, yes, we take medical dental history. We start with history taking at the top. However, what about their social history? And more importantly, their behavioral history, which is what is their vision? What is their goal for their mouth and their oral health moving forward, which then leads us into our chief concern areas that patients will talk to. Have your radiographs, and if you don't have enough intraoral pictures, get an intraoral camera and have those ready for comparative benchmarking with your patients. And after you've done all of this is when you place the patient supine or semi-supine position and go ahead and do the exam. There's a whole different parts to the exam. One thought I want to leave you doctors with is considering re-inspecting the patient. It may be a patient that's always been with us. Actually, the word respect comes from re-inspect. Let's give them respect to look at what they're really needing and wanting and what their concerns are. Maybe it's a discolored tooth they've talked about, but we've never done anything about it. Talking to a lot of dentists, our clients at EDMS especially, saying, you know what? They've been doing a lot of diagnosis on TMD disorders because patients have been clenching and grinding a lot due to stress over COVID. Patient engagement, there's another 4-step process here I won't have time to get into, but the key takeaway with patient engagement is ensuring that the patient understands and owns their own problem. We are sometimes very quick to jump to the solution where the patient didn't even think they had a problem. So that's a patient engagement piece. Moving forward, we have the next visit. What do I mean by that? If there is one thing you may be able to do as far as the next visit, what I mean by that is project the patient to that desired future state. What would that smile look like for you once we get this dentistry done for you? And the funny thing with patients is once you stretch their brain to a future state, that imaginary will become so real to them that they'll make sure they show up for their appointment. So that increases compliance to your next visit and puts warm bodies in your chairs. The second last step of this 8-step process is radiographs. What do I mean by that? We already took x-rays today, Karima. What are you talking about? What I mean by radiographs is for doctors to prescribe radiographs before they exit the operatory. And by that, when was their last FMX or Panorex done, where emotionally connecting with the patient, giving them the rationale of why you need to have those x-rays done, patients will be engaged and 2 things happen. A, they'll show up and they won't be surprised that you're taking the x-ray that goes all the way around. And final step of this 8-step process is closure. Now we all say, okay, you have any questions for me? But if you may consider, doctor, change the rhetoric to, is there any clinical or technical questions I can answer for you? And that really puts a boundary as you as a clinician, as opposed to any insurance or other conversations that may go on. So with that, we did the 8-step process. What I want to do is now share with you some of the rebooking analysis that we run. And this is just one of the examples of many, many training and coaching that we do using that kind of a system. This is a rebooking analysis of a practice. It's a real practice that 209 out of 248 patients walked away without their next appointment booked, with a potential lost revenue of $41,800. So helping them with some strategies, training their team with verbiage, supporting them through that journey so that we get financial abundance by having 92.6% of our patients attached to us. Let me share with you quickly our digital dashboard here. We follow all the key performance metrics for you, the rebooking appointment being one of them as well. Here is a clinic that has 85% of their patients rebooked. We can see April and May, nothing happened because we have that forced shutdown. Now comparing this to another clinic where only 40% of their patients rebooked their next appointment. That is a potential lost revenue of almost $250,000. That's huge. Not to also add the fact of the cost it's going to take for team members to now chase these patients down and to rebook them. So there's an added cost to this already $250,000 cost. The other thing we can do with rebooking analysis is actually do a comparative analysis, which is time consuming. It's very labor intensive. We can automate that for you. And we do it right here on your digital dashboard, which is handheld and touch technology available. And aside from just rebooking rates, we can also look at your associates production collection, new patients, whatever those metrics may be, that we're able to follow up with that. There are 3 more strategies I want to share with you on how to continue keeping warm bodies in your chair. And one is a dormant patient list. We generate this list automatically for you. How many of these patients went dormant last week? And how many patients are going dormant next week? And with this information, we can actually capture these patients before they slip through the cracks and they're gone forever. One of the clinics I work with, actually, it was fun because they created a little contest to see which team member could activate the most amount of dormant patients. So there's another great opportunity to ensure that our schedules stay full. The other strategy I want to share with you is our rebooking rates. You came in and supported that knight in shining armor that took care of that patient's emergency, be it pain, infection, disability. Maybe they had a loss of function, and maybe you even stayed during your lunch hour or after work or came in on the weekend to help them out. Are we tracking their rebooking rate? Because this is an opportunity for us to invite them back for a full comprehensive exam so that we don't have future emergencies like they did today. So this is again an automated generated report at your disposal. And then the final strategy I want to share with you is the hygiene department. As we all know, there are three types of hygiene patients, right? To just really simplify it, there is a stable, and I mean periodontally stable patient, periodontally unstable patient, and a maintenance patient. And each one of these three statuses of patients require a certain type of frequency of recare intervals. Maybe they need more frequent recare. Maybe they need longer appointments. So here's giving you an example, and we automatically generate this active patient report, which shows you that 41% of this practice doctor had one appointment in hygiene in a year, compared to 7% having two appointments in a year. And look at this, 50% of the patients don't even see a hygienist. Now you can, and there's different types of profile and demographics in your clinic. And so to optimize on the periodontal utilization of your practice, here's another format of what the practice demographic could look like as far as hygiene appointments go, where we have 43% of our patients coming in for one appointment for hygiene, 30 of them come twice a year, and 14% of our patients are coming back for 3 appointments, and so on and so forth. So with that, let me summarize that the financial success is very much linked to your schedule success. We talked about the rebooking rates, and it's not about the percentage that's rebooking, but also explored the opportunity to compare and see how our providers rank to that. Additionally, we're talking about, hey, what about our emergency and our dormant patients? And could that be an opportunity for us to fill our schedule? And we literally just scratched the surface, and there's so much more we can do with your number of hygiene visits per patient per year. Let me end with this financial highlight of a real clinic. I think it's familiar to a lot of us, where we all experienced this big trough, right? In April and May, and we rebounded. Most of us exceeded 2019 numbers. Some of us had a second wave. Some of us actually kept going. One of our clients actually out in the West had a double-digit increase, 38% growth during the COVID year. And the way it was done is we were monitoring all the key performance metrics and the practice advisement that we were giving them in the coaching we were providing them with throughout the year. So the question I leave with you is, what metrics are you tracking and following? Because at the end of it, unless you are measuring and tracking it, you can't manage it, as per Peter Drucker, the management consultant guru. It has been my absolute pleasure to spend some time with you here today. And as a thank you for joining us today, I have a giveaway for you. And please feel free, take a screenshot of my contact information there. Happy to share with you the transfer of trust system that we shared and briefly touched upon today. So with that, I thank you for your attention. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Karima. I never get tired of hearing you present, and you take all your years of experience and create this succinct, scenario and give this valuable information. I know people are probably feverishly taking notes and appreciating everything you have to offer and bring to this group today. I'm getting word that Plak's telling me that if you have questions, there's a Q&A box that they can go in. And after each segment, we're in the Produce It segment right now. We'll address those questions and we'll reach out to our audience. I know there's a couple of polls we'd also like to take and have you participate in. I think it goes back to a point that Karima made, motion creates emotion. So if you get involved, if you interact, you're probably, some of you who may have taken that from your okay stance, I'd like to see where you're at now after seeing Karima speak. You should probably be having an excellent day. So once again, Karima, thank you very much. And it's always a pleasure to work with you and have you as part of this panel.
Thank you so very much. Happy.
Right. Our next speaker is Angie Drinic. And I can't believe it every time I say this. 40 years in the business. I have a hard time looking at this wonderful woman and believing that for a second. 40 years in the business of dentistry. She has a BAA minor in marketing, a law degree from the Western State College of Law in the United States of America. She's currently enrolled in a cognitive behavior certification program, which in our business could come in handy. and Angie is currently works with us at EDMS. She is the director of Engaged Coaching for Central Canada. Angie, I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much for that great introduction. And Karima, as always, fantastic job, great information. We're also lucky to be working with you and side by side with you. So with that, I'm going to bring up my platform here and get rid of some of the nuisance. Alrighty then. So what I'm going to be talking about today is the morning huddle. That morning huddle that everybody either dreads or looks forward to. And, everybody calls it something different. Some people call it the morning huddle. Some people call it the morning meeting. Whatever it is, it's important to have it. And I'm going to talk to you about the whys and what exactly are the reasons that we should have it. So I'm going to touch on a couple of points. One of them being the importance of the morning huddle. The other one is looking for the opportunities that it presents when we have the morning huddle. The KPIs that we find from the morning huddle, milestones and results, and supporting reports. The number one thing that I hear all the time, and especially right now during these times, it seems like, as Karima, my dear partner had said, there's a disconnection. There's a time now that everything is different. We're not operating in the same manner. We're not enjoying the times that we had before when we had all our chairs were busy, packed. Not only were our chairs packed, our waiting rooms were packed. We had people waiting to come in next. And the nervousness was not there. The nervousness of what is going to happen, who's next. I think that these times are not here to stay. I think that there's parts of it that we will now continue enjoying the Zoom, but we're humanly prone and designed to be tribal. What do I mean by that? We need that connection. We need that connection with our tribe, with our people, with our family. So those times will come. So it's important that right now we know that the only way that we can keep with the challenging times is by doing what we do best, and that is adapting and evolving. Now, how can we do that? And what does that have anything to do with the morning huddle? Well, one of the things that I see a lot of times is when I'm speaking to people about the morning huddle or the morning meeting, is they come up with all these limiting factors. What exactly do I mean by limiting factors? Limiting factors are those which limit you from moving forward, from growing, from evolving, if you may. So I would like to look at some of those limiting factors that I have heard some of the offices share with me. And how are we going to conquer them? What are we going to do to move past them? And I always say that one of the biggest fears, research shows that one of the biggest fears for human beings, aside from dying, is public speaking. Now, does that mean that I, being one of the persons that does a lot of public speaking, has no fear? Absolutely not. I still fear it. I still get up on stage. I still get those butterflies in my stomach, still get that nervous little giggle at times, but I move forward anyways. Doesn't mean that I'm eliminating it. I move with it. So one of the things that's very important is always to keep in mind is that something in motion is very difficult to stop. So when we put limiting factors, then we're stopping that motion. So let's look at some of the limiting factors that I hear. we all start at different times. We all come into the office at different times. Therefore, we can't have a morning huddle or a morning meeting. The next one is, it takes too long. You know, it becomes a bitching session. It's not productive. Nobody really cares. We have no time. It takes too long. So these are all excuses and limiting factors from growing. We don't see the point. That one I've heard from many team members. So let's tackle some of these. I have noticed through the years, and actually, Mark, it's been 43 years. In these 43 years that I've been in dental offices, visiting, training, and helping increase the production, there's always one thing that they have in common, and that is they all have a morning meeting. They never skip it. They always find a way. And what it does, it increases their production year after year. How does that happen? What is it exactly that they do anything different than any other practice would probably do? Well, one of the things that they do, if you guys follow sports at all, in sports, usually you have the time that you have to warm up, or you have your practice games, or you have your pre-games games. Well, not at the dental office. At the dental office, it is the big game. It is the day of the big game. Today is the day. We have to get out there and be prepared. For those that don't talk sports, and I'm one of them that do not speak sports, let's look at it as in a different format. We're on stage. Everybody, every morning, when we come into the office, it is important that we come prepared because we are going to be on stage. What do I mean by that? Patients see your every move. They're paying attention to everything you say, everything you do, how you do it, who you say it, the tone of voice, your mannerism, everything. They're watching your every move. So it's important that we prepare for that we prepare for that big day before the big curtains open and we start our day being on stage. So it's important to keep in mind that your patients are watching, so you want to be prepared. Today is the big day for the game. So what do we want to do? What would be one of them? Not everybody comes in at the same time. Did you know there is a free app out there called freeconferencecall.com? It's free. You can go ahead and sign up for it and create an account. And what that does is it gives you a phone number in which anybody can call from anywhere around the world. Call into that particular number and you can go ahead and have your meeting. In other words, they don't have to be present. They don't have to be in the office. They can take their schedule, print a schedule with them or download it and look at the schedule and participate in this meeting without even stepping foot into the office. Now there's a solution, isn't there? Another thing, it is very important to have the morning meeting because you can find opportunities. And the opportunities that you can find in those are ways to fill in your empty chairs. Right now with COVID, patients really are looking for ways to save time or trips outside of their homes or their safety areas. And one of the ways that you can limit the times that they come into the office is by seeing if any of the people that are in your hygiene chairs have any work that needs to be done, because maybe they can extend the appointment and have more work done while they are there, and the other way around. If they are having treatment, maybe they have a hygiene appointment that's outstanding, and you can save them a trip on that format as well. Also, the morning huddle sets the tone of the day. One of the things that they say that's very important is that the first couple of minutes that you interact with a person is how the tone of the day is going to be set, or the tone of that encounter. If it starts off pleasant, chances are it will continue to go pleasant. So if you in the morning have your huddle, I always say, start with a story of what went well the day before. What was fantastic about yesterday? And if there isn't anything that was fantastic yesterday, have a joke master assigned. Have somebody who's going to be the person who's going to tell a joke. Laughter is always a good way to start a good positive tone of the day. As I had said earlier, same day treatment. Another of the opportunities I always recommend is to pick two people that you're going to ask for reviews, and two people that you're going to ask for referrals. Now, make sure that that person that you're going to ask for reviews is somebody that has a lot of social media presence, because those are usually the people that have a lot of following. And the conversation should sound something like this. Mrs. Smith, we were so happy to see you when you were on the schedule today. Everybody was so excited. We really enjoy your company, and we need your help. Is there any possibility that you can give us a review, because we are growing our online presence, and the review from you would really help us? Now, the same conversation can take place for a referral. Mrs. Smith, we really enjoy it when you come into the office, and we would love to see more patients like yourself. Is there any possibility that you know any of your friends or family that might enjoy being a patient here? We would truly enjoy it and appreciate it if you can send them our way. Another of the topics that I want to speak about is the 80-20 rule. I'm sure a lot of you, if not all of you, know exactly what I'm talking about. They say that 80% of your income comes from 20% of your patients. Okay, fair enough. But what about the other 80% of your patients? Or what about the other 20% of the income? That's what I like to look at as the low-hanging fruit. Now, at EDMS, we have done research through our reports of what exactly does that represent? What kind of loss does that represent? And this are the numbers of a true clinic. In this particular clinic, this is an average clinic. It's not a large clinic. It's not a small clinic. It's just an average clinic. What we found is that in not paying attention to that 20% of income, or that 80% of patients that don't come in or don't give us a lot of production, there's a loss of $130,000 a year. I don't know about you, but I could surely use an extra $130,000 in my pocket. Another of the things, the chart audit. How long should a chart audit take? A proper chart audit should take between 30 and 45 minutes if you are using your practice management software to do that. Why? Because most of the people that are doing the chart audit jump from one platform to another to gather all the vital information. Now, a lot of dentists worry because they say that they have to pay their team to stay late or come in much earlier. And that although the only reason that the provider or the front desk people are coming in that much longer to do this is because they want to make more money. Actually, it's not true. Research shows that people are not always motivated by money. It actually shows that there are other reasons to be motivated. One of them is time, acts of kindness, words of praise, and human connection. Money actually comes at the very bottom. What should a proper audit look like? Well, it should say the provider's name, it should say the patient's name, the birth date, it should say the type of appointment it is. It should say if there's any notes, like for example, here we're saying that this patient needs an implant on number 3-5. We need to know what kind of method of contact do they prefer now. That's really important. And the reason why it's very important is because nowadays with the pandemic, people have changed the way that they want to be contacted. So we want to make sure that we're up to date on that. Want to know, do we have an email for them? And we want to know when was the last time we did any of these procedures to make sure that we're following up on a timely manner and that there is no supervised neglect. It should also tell us if there's any treatment that's outstanding. I prefer to do the major because that's the one that we want to make sure that's there. And the report would be too long if we put them all there. Another of the ones that I think is very important is there any patient family members, anybody that's on the same account that are not on our schedule. This is the perfect time to make sure that we catch them all. Mrs. Smith, you know, we haven't seen Johnny in a long time. Is there a reason why we haven't seen him? We keep calling him, but we don't seem to get an answer. Oh, Johnny is now in university. He only comes back during the summer. Try him in the summer. That's the best time to catch him. These are the type of answers that we would get from a patient if we follow up. It also tells us if there's any balance, if there's dual insurance for those that are insurance conscious. Now, what kind of reports are important? What kind of data do we need to really examine whether we are taking advantage of all that low-hanging fruit? Well, we want to know about the examination recalls, how often they are, what percentage is being captured during that year, the emergency visits, is there any follow-ups, bite wings, panorex, and this one in particular represents all the low-hanging fruit that was not captured in the office that I had mentioned previously. And again, it's $130,000 worth of revenue loss. So what is it exactly that the plan should look like? We need to gather the information. We need to plan how we are going to take care of this morning meeting, and we need to execute it every day. What does that look like? Information. Keep everyone on track and on time with the proper agenda. I always say have somebody with a timer so that we know where we are at, that we start early and we leave on time. Plan what will be reviewed, who will review it, and a timekeeper. Execution. If you do not have the software, create a format to keep track of all the KPIs. Dr. Dolman, what he said was, and now this guy was pivotal in the success of the economy or the recovery of the economy of Japan back in World War II. And one of the things that he says that I've read, and it always rings true with me, is 94% of success is in the systems. If you do not have the system to continue creating the data so that your morning huddle goes seamlessly, please reach out. EDMS has those reports for you. It is important that we set up our team for success. And how can we do that? By creating the reports that move them forward, that grow your practice. And who can do that for you? We can do that for you at EDMS. So please contact us. This is the information of our main office. And I too have a giveaway. If you need a template for the morning huddle, please contact me and I will be more than happy to send it to you. Please take a screenshot of my contact and let me know. I will send it directly to you at any time. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for coming and joining us to this webinar. And I hope that it's been as informative and as pleasant as I have been to participate in it.
43 years. I want to applaud that lady. And it's a pleasure working with you. It's a pleasure listening to you. There's so much value and there's so much knowledge that you bring to our industry, especially from the operational side. And I know that people are probably, again, like with Karima, fiercely taking notes. I know Palak's been monitoring the Q&A box. If there's questions for our engaged team, we'll be happy to take them now. Palak will field them and deliver them. And I know she wants to run another poll to see how well we're engaging and participating so far in this evening's webinar. So Palak, I'll let you take it over for a minute.
Good evening, everyone. We do have questions for both our speakers, Karima and Angie. So Karima, the first question is for you. And the question is, what strategy would you apply for rebooking patients with no insurance coverage?
Great question, because money is a big part of it. My suggestion would be understanding what the patient's wants are. What is it that they desire, and really making it affordable. An example that comes to my mind is, as a practicing hygienist in an implant practice, we had a lady walk in the door that looked like she had next to nothing, a plastic bag. And her big thing was she sang in a choir and had a hole here. And she says, "Can you do something about this tooth, doctor?" So we just get, and she had a whole bunch of other stuff going on. And all we did was listen to her want and fix that one tooth. She found the money. She took a second mortgage on her house and got implants here, here, and here. So I think really tuning in that emotional connection. What is it that's moving that patient? And then let's make it affordable. Let's retrofit it. And with the implant, for example, it's a stage process. So we came up with monthly plans, which then enabled her and made it affordable to have her dream job there. Now, this is just a quick thought that I have that comes to my mind. I don't know if Angie, I saw you nodding, but if you wanted to add to it, but that emotional connection, meeting the patient where they are, and most importantly, just making it affordable. What can you afford a month? And let's move with that.
Absolutely, 100%, Karima. Thank you. I totally agree on that. Is what I like to call the M&M, what matters most to patients. And we always focus on, our friendly M&Ms. We can get them to where they want to be.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Karima, for answering that question. We hope the doctor that asked this has his or her answer. Next question is for you, Angie. We have a doctor who's asking us a question about the morning report on EDMS. And his question is, do you have to download it every day?
No, absolutely not. That's the beauty of it. We not only do you not have to download it, we email it to our customers sometime after midnight. So when they come in first thing in the morning, it's ready to go. So what we have found is that in an office that has anywhere between 3 hygienists or 3 to 4 hygienists, they're looking at savings of over $2,000 a month in salaries to not have to keep those hygienists to come in the morning or stay later in the afternoon. So if you want to save over $2,000 a month, EDMS is the way to go.
Well, not only that, but to your point, and as we know, most doctors, any doctors I've worked with, they're up half the night anyway, trying to percolate in their brain what the next day is going to look like. Well, that report can come directly to their cell phone so that they can manufacture a successful day before they even get into the office. And that's one of the beauties of that report that EDMS delivers to our clients.
That's right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question, and I'd leave it to the EDMS team to answer. This is from another one of our attendees, and they ask that they have recently bought a practice and would like to place new marketing strategies. However, it is hard for some staff to adapt to it. Any recommendations?
Say that, if you don't mind, Karima, you have to have buy-in. You have to have buy-in from your team. Your team has to have a reason to participate. And one of my favorite books out there, and I recommend it to all my clients, is The Languages of Love. And I know it's meant for relationships, but if you read that book, you'll discover that they say every human being has 5 languages that they like to speak. And I think I referred to those earlier in my PowerPoint, where it's usually about, touch, words of praise, gifts, time, and at the end, it actually praises for money. It talks about money. And I know I'm missing one of them, but I can't remember right now.
Service. Acts of
Thank
service.
you. Acts of service. Thank you so much, Karima, for that. So a lot of times, if we identify what language our team is speaking or what do they respond to, then you can have buy-in. Without buy-in from the team, I don't see it as successful. Karima, did you want to add to that?
Absolutely, I do. And I totally agree with you. The buy-in is really important. What we've done in our coaching careers, Angie, you sure you agree with me, is the why. Remember the 3 concentric circles? We're very good about, somebody asks you, what do you do? Oh, I'm a hygienist. Oh, what do you do? Well, you know that white smile or the disease, we go on to explain the why, the what, and the how, but really drilling it down to that vision of what is it? Why do you do what you do? How are you improving or making an impact in your life? And that leads to Angie's point about the buy-in. If we are all aligned with the why of our dental practice, the rest is easy, right? The rest just comes.
That's
So
right.
my suggestion to the doctor asking that question is, do we have a vision statement? And is it a shared vision statement? And can we create one with our team so everybody has skin in the game and then together come up with that marketing plan? So I hope that helps answer and give some insights on that.
Thank you, Karima. Thank you, Angie. We have one last question, and I will let Mark answer this one.
Oh,
We
interesting.
have a doctor who is
No, I'm not
based out of Ottawa, and they ask that they're based in Ottawa and they've never heard of us. Are we new? So, Mark, I'm going to let you take that one.
Well, interestingly enough, that they're based out of Ottawa, which is the founding home of EDMS and our CEO, Peter Evans. EDMS was birthed, it's almost been 7.5, 8 years ago now. And the evolution that it's taken from the analytical delivery that we have, which is the powerful tools that both these engaged ladies shared with our group tonight. And from there, we snowballed it. We've got the engaged coaching team. We have an internal brokerage of buy, sell, build, and scale. We're bringing on wealth management and wealth planners. So if this doctor hasn't heard about EDMS, I suggest he speaks to one of us and we can give him a tour of the company and the service offerings that we have. And it's not an all things to all people. We have very competent people that are in each silo that have a core competency that speaks to that. So it's not, I do finance, I do coaching, I do real estate. No, we have separate engaged coaches that focus on just the coaching and speaking to the analytics. We have licensed brokers that work with our clients and work with our teams to help them, whether they're building and scaling, whether they're looking for legacy to maybe they're at the end of their career. Each one of those core competencies is met by a professional that is their focus. So if you haven't heard of EDMS, thank you for joining us tonight. And you have now, and I'm happy to talk to you at any time. So please reach out.
Thank you, Mark. And also being responsible for social media, I'm going to say, if you haven't heard of us, please follow us on our social media handles and you will hear quite a bit of us everywhere, I assure you. All right, so we have a poll for all of our audience that I'm just going to make live, and I'm hoping that everyone will be able to participate. Are you ready to produce it?
After that last segment and all the information they got, I'm hoping that the answer is unanimously yes.
Okay, we're closing voting in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Like a rocket launch.
And yes, the 100% of our audience
100%.
says they're ready to
Love
produce
it.
I would be curious. I would be curious, Palak, if you redid the first poll. I don't know if you could do that on the level of engagement. I think we had 60% people were excellent and some people were great and good. Maybe we'll try that at the end to see if we manage to elevate a few people and get them excited about what we're talking about tonight. As we move forward, that was the Produce It segment, the operations segment of the seminar. And now that we've got some of the intelligence on how to do that and how to move us forward, then how do we ensure we're investing properly? What are we doing with that money? Where's the safety and security of that money within the practice and within your financial scope? Our next set of speakers, it's a duo, a dynamic duo from AT Financial, is Amy Tong and Tero Huang. Amy has been providing financial solutions to the healthcare industry now for over 20 years. Her workshops focus on critical illness, disability insurance, and it's something we don't like to talk about, and sometimes an elephant in the room, but it's something we need to know about for if that ever unfortunate time happens in our lives, that we've got that knowledge. And I hope that nobody ever has to solicit her for those services, but I think it's very important. That's something that we have in our arsenal. Not only that, Amy and her team focus on wealth planning for the healthcare professional and tax solutions for healthcare professionals as well. Tero, you have graduated from the University of Western Ontario back in 2015, I believe, with a major in human resources before taking the leap into the financial world, and congratulations on that. I understand right now you're getting your designation as a financial planner, and we're really excited to see what the two of you bring to the table tonight. Thank you for being here. I know our audience is definitely going to get some strong wisdom from the both of you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And I just wanted to start off today by saying welcome, everyone. Good evening. And thank you, EDMS Engage, for inviting me and Amy tonight on Money Talks 2021 to share with you about financial information and financial strategies. Oh, got stuck. Okay, now as a dentist, you all have great earning potentials. But then the bigger question is how to use all those earned income in the most tax-effective way. We build wealth in two levels, either through our corporation or through personal. And everyone will prefer to use that 87.5% after-tax income available from their corporation instead of only the 50% from your personal income. Fewer dollars lost to tax means more money at work in the corporation. But how can we avoid trapping that 87% of our wealth in corporation and free it to fund our retirement? And this is the goal of my session today with Amy, to show how to build your retirement with your corporate dollars and release it out tax-free to you personally. 3 different strategies will be taking place tonight to answer this million-dollar question. I will be going over the first 2, the corporate insurance retirement planning and the executive health planning, and Amy will finish us off with the immediate financing arrangement tonight. And before I start to go into the first strategy, I want to first talk a bit about the types of life insurances. As we all know, there's the term and the permanent life insurance. Now, with the term insurance, think of this as you are renting a place. You pay rent to live in a house or a condo, and every now and then the rent may increase. The real estate market may also increase in value, but then that becomes somewhat irrelevant because you do not own this place. Your focus is only on renting in exchange for a place to live for a period of time. And same analogy for term insurance. You pay the premium, it will renew at a higher rate and only have coverage until age 85. Whereas for permanent insurance, think of it as you are buying the house. You may have a mortgage for a period of time, but eventually the house is yours. The real estate market will increase in value, meaning an increase in your personal asset. Of course, it may cost more for you to own a house compared to renting initially, but you can always capitalize the appreciation of the house. And if we put that in perspective into paying premiums for permanent insurance, the premiums will be higher compared to a term, but policy will increase in cash value, meaning after 20 years, the policy will be paid for by itself through investing done by the insurance company. And the upside of this is you can pay for the premium using your corporate retained earnings and earn all the investments in tax shelter way. But how can you access those tax shelter growth from the policy during your lifetime? And this is where the first strategy comes in, corporate insured retirement planning, how to access the money for retirement. The concept of this is that upon retirement, the company can use corporate-owned life insurance to assign as a collateral for a loan. The bank will lend up to 90% of the policy's cash value. The loan received can be used to supplement your retirement income. And on death, the life insurance proceeds are used to repay the bank loan, and any remaining is distributed tax-free to the family. By having your corporation purchase this life insurance policy, the need for insurance protection today and flexibility at retirement has been both addressed. And here we have an example of a dentist who wanted to retire at age 65. He is currently 35 years old, and the dentist anticipates that he will need to supplement his retirement cash flow by approximately $115,000 each year for the next 20 years, starting at 65. And there's two ways he can do this to achieve this retirement cash flow while creating an estate. First is to invest around $46,000 for 20 years into alternative investment. And the second way is to invest the same amount, so invest $46,000 into a premium insurance policy, into a permanent insurance policy. And by investing the same amount of money for 20 years and receiving a supplemental retirement income for 20 years, we can see that if they were being invested in the alternative investment, at the end, they will only have around $300,000 net amount payable at death. Whereas if they go with the strategy and start with a permanent insurance, the growth of the value is tax sheltered. And when they take money out at 85, they are still left with $2 million payout at death. So this corporate insured retirement strategy discussed today is great for business owners who want to either reduce their corporate taxes, want to have supplemental income for retirement, or want to accumulate higher estate value. And the second strategy today is an executive health plan. This is a jointly owned critical illness policy. The corporation and the dentist establishes a co-owned critical illness policy with return of premium benefit added. Now, you may think that I already have a personal owned critical illness policy. Why do I need to get my corporation involved? Whether the corporation owns the policy or I personally own the policy, it will cover up to the numbered illnesses regardless. So what impact does it have? What are the advantages? Here's another case study of a young dentist who set up this plan. And the dentist pays for 1/3 of the premium, with the corporation paying a 2/3 of the premium for this policy. Now, if the policy is in place, we'll see there are 3 different scenarios. The first is if a claim is never made on the policy and any time after 15 years, the dentist will receive all the premiums paid tax-free. If the dentist passes, the company receives all those paid premiums tax-free. And lastly, if a claim was made in an event of an illness, the company will be paid a benefit of up to $2.5 million in coverage. And as a result, by putting this policy in place, once we do a calculation, you'll be able to save up to 27% of tax. Now, planning has become very important for incorporated dentists who want to provide the most tax-effective business transactions and still maximize their personal estates. And now I wanted to pass to Amy to discuss the third strategy, immediate financing arrangement.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Amy. As many of you know, I have been working with dentists for over 20 years in helping them with their financial and business planning. As a top of the table MDRT member, I am in the top 1% of my industry. Many dentists viewed me as a business consultant in their career. When I am asked to give advice, I always analyze the situation based on your personal needs and match you with the right connection in the area of starting up an office, buying a practice, job hunting, associate recruiting, retirement planning, and more. I'm thankful to be invited by EDMS to today's webinar to share with you information about effective tax saving strategies for dentists. From Tero's presentation, you have learned about the benefit of permanent insurance, but now you may have to consider the cash flow needed for it. But what if I tell you you can have an insurance policy without paying for it? Will you be interested to know more? Today, I would like to introduce a unique strategy called immediate financing arrangement. It is a sophisticated financing planning concept that allows financially successful dentists and dental corporations to acquire life insurance cost effectively without tying up available cash resources. So how does this work? A dentist will first they buy the policy and pay the initial premium for a permanent life insurance to build up the cash value. Then the policy is assigned to the bank to secure a collateral loan for the premium. The loan proceeds are then reinvested for the purpose of producing incomes. Both the interest and the cost of insurance are tax deductible. Each year, the client pays the insurance premium, follow the same amount, and reinvest every year repeatedly for 10 years. At death, the outstanding loan balance would be paid using the death insurance proceeds. Once the loan is repaid, any remaining proceeds will be paid to the estate tax-free through the capital dividend account. Now, let us look at the case. Let's assume the loan interest rate to be 4% and the marginal tax rate is 50%. And we have a 38-year-old non-smoker dentist who has purchased insurance with 3 million coverage. His premium is $149,000 annually for 10 years. This premium will be borrowed from the bank immediately. Therefore, no cash flow from premium payment are needed from the corporation. Loan interest costs and the cost of insurance are tax deductible. After 10 years of payment, the value of the tax-free death benefit will be projected to be 6.8 million at age 75 and 8.6 million at age 85, based on the current dividend scale. These death benefit after pay off the loan will help the family to pay all the taxes due upon death. There are many benefits in the immediate financing arrangement. The benefits include permanent life insurance, which increase the estate value. The dentist does not have to choose between insurance and investment for their cash resources. Through the collateral loan, the dentist can free up the cash for investment. In this case, cash flow for premium is minimal, requiring only the payment of the loan interest. Opportunities for the investment growth, which will increase your wealth, and many more tax advantages are available, such as the tax shelter growth on cash value, tax deductible on the interest and cost of insurance, as well as the tax-free death benefit. So now we have to ask ourselves, who should consider using this strategy? The most suitable candidate for an immediate financing arrangement are dentists who need the life insurance to protect their business and to fund the tax liability at death for their estate planning, would like to take advantage of the tax shelter growth in the cash value, and who are financially stable and are in the highest rate of income tax bracket. In conclusion, the dentist who can use this immediate financing arrangement strategy to purchase the permanent life insurance to have the possible benefit from the tax shelter growth and the tax-free benefit without tying up the cash flow. We at AT Financial work together with our client to identify and meet your need. Through our consultation, I will review your situation and help you determine what is best suited for you. Our objective is to build a strategy for you to ensure that you will maximize your retirement income, minimize your tax, and avoid trapping the surplus in the corporation through the 3 strategies: corporate insured retirement planning, executive health plan, and immediate financing arrangement. We can help you to put this strategy in place, but how it is done can make a big difference. Our method has always been shopped around and comparing with different insurance companies. We will always ask ourselves, which company offers the highest estate value while investing the same amount of money before presenting the proposal to the client. All the numbers from each insurance company will be presented to a full transparency and making sure that you are aware and are comfortable with the plan. To become a successful dentist, you need to enjoy your work, take pride in helping patients with their oral health needs. Always focus on improving the dental practice. You can consider engaging in effective management software from EDMS and learning more how to avoid fraud in the dental office from David, our next speaker. It is important to have a positive mindset. We can learn it from Mark, our moderator. Build a supportive team to include the accountant, lawyers, practice management, coaches, marketing expertise to provide insight to improve your dentistry business. It is never too late to have a strategic financial planning in place to maximize your retirement income and minimize your tax. Above all of those, always remember to maintain good health. I'm happy to share my special tips combining both Western and Eastern practices. All these steps will bring you to financial freedom. We hope to become your partner for life and build together, grow together with you. Thank you. With that, I would like to pass it to Mark. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentation. And Palak, you were messaging me that you had a few questions for both these ladies on how, let's see what they can return and support our industry.
Oh, thank you, Amy, and thank you, Tero, for your fantastic presentations. We do have 2 questions, one for Tero and one for Amy. So I'm going to start with Tero. Tero, the question for you is, for corporate retirement planning at age 65, since there would be so much cash value, why can't I withdraw it from the policy? And why do I have to go to the bank?
So the advantage of this plan is the cash value accumulated on a tax sheltered base. Now, upon retirement, if we take that money from the policy, it will be taxed. But if we go to the bank, then this is borrowing from a third party now. Therefore, it's not considered taking values within the policy. So yes, even if you do have to pay interest to the bank, overall, that is still less than the tax paid for compared to when we take the money from the policy. And at that, the bank always gets the outstanding loan balance and any interest remaining. Without touching the funds in the policy, you have the chance to accumulate a higher value. And because that is tax sheltered, you'll eventually result in ending up having a higher net shareholder value to pay off the bank, and with remaining paying to the shareholders or your beneficiaries.
Thank you, Tero. I hope that answers the question. Next, we have a question for you, Amy. And the question is, for immediate financing arrangement, do all insurance companies have this planning?
Oh, okay. Around 6 to 8 insurance companies they have the insurance, they have this immediate financing arrangement. But not all the company have the same cash value, and it's not suitable for everyone. So like we do have many comparison and analysis before arriving to a final proposal. We will compare the cash value, the death benefit from different insurance companies. The purpose is to get the client to have the maximum estate value. We always work closely with the accountant, and our purpose is to coordinate these effective tax strategies into your overall financial picture.
Thank you, Amy. We do have one more question for your team, which is this mostly for young new dentists, or is it valid for everyone, all dentists?
This is why I mentioned that we will analyze your situation. And for young dentists, for the dentists who incorporated or they own multi number of practices, they all have different need, and then we will cater to their situation and give them the solution. The most important thing in my group is I always like to shop around the best deal for my client. So we will look into everyone's situation and we'll give the advice.
So just to clarify, irrespective of how long they've been practicing, you would look into their specific situation and then advise them accordingly, right?
Yes.
All right. I hope that answers the question. We have another poll. And here we go. Are you ready to insure it?
Yeah.
And she begins her 5-second countdown to close. This should be a unanimous answer that you need to take your money and make sure it's put in the right place during your working years.
So these are
No.
the results. We do have someone who says they aren't. Maybe it was accidental. Maybe it was, I mean, maybe they just need more information, right? And I'm sure
you can
that they
call, you
reach out
can
to-
send us an email, and then we can answer all the questions and also give you more information.
Great. Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you so much, audience that's listening in. Thank you, Tero. Mark, take it away.
Thank you. And again, we really appreciate people engaging, and it's very difficult to do these in these little Hollywood square settings that we've been subject to for the last year and a half. And it'll be so great to be able to have a seminar where we can engage with you one-on-one and have greater interaction. But we do appreciate you investing your time this evening and sitting in on this webinar for this valuable information. Our next speaker, this is interesting. We've talked about the production, the operation side of the office, and how to create momentum within your office. And with this last team from AT Financial Group, we talked about what is it I'm going to do with these resources, with my finances, how am I going to protect my financial future and plan into that. And now, or ensure that, pardon me, and now what do we do to protect that money? And our next speaker, David Harris, he probably has what I would consider one of the coolest jobs in our business, because he gets to catch the bad guy. He gets to catch the guys and gals that are actually stealing and robbing from dental professionals. David is the president and CEO of Prosperident, the world's largest forensic investigation firm that for financial crimes against dentists, a forensic certified public accountant, a certified fraud examiner, and a licensed private investigator. David, you just need a black cape and a cool car, and you're a superhero, my friend. You're an author and a highly sought after speaker in our industry. It's a pleasure to have you here tonight. It's a topic that most dentists hope they never have to breach or enter into, but I've seen your work, and it's unfortunate. You do great work, and you've helped and saved a lot of dental practices since you've been in business. So we look forward to your presentation.
Wow, thank you very much, Mark. And what an honor it is to share a panel with such wonderful people. I've really enjoyed working over the past few weeks with everybody as we got ready for this. And as Mark says, I'm like everybody else. I look forward to the day when we can do this face to face. but let's make the next half hour or so great. The theme of tonight's presentation is money talks, and I'm going to add my own piece to that. It also walks out the door. And we're talking, of course, about embezzlement. And if you want a definition of embezzlement, it is staff stealing from the practice owner. We'll just start with a quote, and you can see it. The mass of men, and of course, this is from a century or so ago. Today, you would say the mass of people lead lives of quiet desperation. Desperation is one of the reasons people steal. So how likely is it that somebody in the audience gets stolen from? The most recent information on this, which is a little bit alarming, comes from the American Dental Association. So of course, these are US statistics. I can tell you, working in both countries, that there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of what I'm about to show you between the US and Canada. So what the ADA did was in 2018, they asked 17,000 dentists, have you been embezzled from? And here's the good news. 53% of those people said, to the best of my knowledge, I have not been. The other 47%, of course, said yes. And what the ADA did next was it asked them, okay, how many times? And about half of the people who said yes said once, as far as I know, and just about everything on this side is going to be answered with as far as I know. 11% admitted that they had been embezzled twice. It's going to get worse. 2% 3 times, and the remainder, which is 8%, said 4 or more times. So if you do a little simple exercise here and you take 26% times 1, 11% times 2, 2% times 3, and 8% times, let's say, 4, what you come up with is that out of 100 dentists, there have already been 92 embezzlements. Now, what the survey can't tell us is, of the 53% who said, I'm clean as far as I know, how many will get embezzled in the rest of their career? The best guess I can give you is about half. In other words, what I'm telling you is that embezzlement is going to touch close to 80% of you sooner or later. The trend here is very noticeable. This is a 2019 study, or the survey was done in 2018. The results were released in 2019. 12 years earlier, the ADA did a similar survey, and they asked many thousand dentists, have you been stolen from? And the answer in 2007 was that 35% of dentists said they had been embezzled. So in the 12 years between these two studies, the number who reported being embezzled went up from 35 to 47%. In other words, it went up by 12%. That's really alarming. And I'll say that the last year has made it even worse. There has been more embezzlement uncovered in the last year probably than in any previous year. And I'll talk about why in a minute. A few more statistics that I'm going to give you, and some of you are going to be looking for the Ativan here in a minute or two. The first thing is that the average embezzlement in a dental practice goes on undetected for almost 2 years. This one's kind of important, and if we were doing a longer presentation, I would develop this a little bit more. The typical thief steals from you using 3 different methods simultaneously. Every thief seems to know that if they only steal from you using one method, it will get caught. It will stick out statistically. So like any prudent investor, they diversify their portfolio and they use multiple methods of stealing from you. And the third thing is that the average amount that they get to the point where they get caught is about $109,000. We have this part of our website called the Hall of Shame, and that's where we profile embezzlers. There are about 700 of them on the Hall of Shame, and it's certainly worth a little bit of entertainment value. And also, I would encourage you to search your staff members by name in case any of them come up. Part of the Hall of Shame is called the $1 Million Club. So those are thieves who have stolen more than $1 million from their practice, and it has 9 members. We also have the less exclusive $500,000 Club, and that's got about 30 members. So some people get really significant dollars, and Somebody's going to ask this question in the Q&A, so I'll just preempt it now. The biggest embezzlement I've ever seen was $2 million. And that was taken from a 2-dentist practice over about 5.5 years. Wow. So let's ask a really basic question. And the pictures you're going to see in the background are pictures of embezzlers. I've picked Canadian ones for this presentation. What I will say is if you see somebody in the background who looks like one of your staff, we really need to talk. So let's ask a really fundamental question. Why do people steal? And embezzlers steal for one of two reasons, which I refer to as need or greed. And need is exactly what you think it is. These are people who are 2 months behind in their mortgage and they're about to lose their house. And they're stealing to defend the basics of life. This is the cohort that we have really seen jump into prominence in the last year. And a lot of industries have downsized. I would hate, for example, to be married to somebody who had a job with an airline right now. Where I live, about 10% of the restaurants didn't reopen after the COVID shutdown. There's this displacement going on in the economy right now, and it's created some needy people. The second cohort steal not specifically to address a financial deficit, but for reasons of ego. These are the people who look at you as basically a high-functioning moron with good hands. And in their mind, the only reason that you're successful is because they do all those things that Angie and Karima told you to do to keep your chair full. And then they collect the money when the people leave. And they believe that their value to your practice is far higher than what you pay them. And they're stealing to take what they think you should be giving them. And greedy people will spend the money they steal in ways that are very different than the needy people. The needy folks, they're buying groceries, they're paying the mortgage, they're paying the car payment, and if their child needs something. Greedy people, and again, I stress this is an ego-driven phenomenon, they will spend money in ways that they perceive will give them status. One of the big uses that money gets put to by greedy thieves is cosmetic surgery. They will buy expensive clothes. They will take trips. They will do things that tell their friends in the world, I'm doing okay. One of our alumni, as we lovingly refer to them as, she chartered a private plane and she took 6 of her friends on a shopping trip to New York. And the backstory was that her friends all made more money than she did. They were in jobs that paid more than working in a dental practice. Some of them were professionals. And this was her way of kind of waving the flag and saying, you know what, I'm doing okay too. And the greedy people enjoy spending the money that they steal, but it's not really what drives them. Another of our alumni was stealing from a practice, and then she won $3 million in the Georgia State Lottery. I think you can close your eyes and predict what most of your staff would do if they won $3 million. They would quit their job, and on the way out the door, they would say those things that they never dared say to you before. Well, this woman did neither of those things. She kept working at the practice after she won the $3 million, and she kept stealing. But here's the really interesting part. The amount she was stealing each month as a millionaire went up. She was stealing more after she won the lotto than before. So clearly money wasn't the driver there. Again, it was this need for status, this act of taking a risk and getting away with it and getting an endorphin rush from doing that. Those were the things that drove her. So how do they steal? Yes, the lady on the screen, Vicki Wofford from Temecula. Temecula is near San Diego, California. Vicki had a little gambling problem and she fed it with 1.6 million of her doctor's dollars. Wow. So 2 ways I can steal. The first way is called revenue theft, or sometimes it's known as skimming. And what that means is intercepting patient payments or insurance payments that are coming into the practice. The other way to steal is called expense theft, and that means things like, for example, tampering with payroll, or doing something, if you have a bonus plan in your practice that results in getting paid out more money than people are supposed to, or creating a phantom supplier. I mean, there are lots of ways that expense theft can manifest, but expense theft is getting the practice to pay out something that it's not supposed to pay out. And I'll just remind you of what Mark said earlier. If you have questions, don't wait till the end. Stick them in the Q&A box now, and then at the end, I'll be happy to get to them for you. So between these two, by far and away, the dominant theft pattern in dentistry is theft of revenue. In most other businesses, the way that most money is stolen is on the expense side. Dentistry is different. And in dentistry, it tends to come from revenue. There's something about dentistry that a lot of us don't think about a whole lot. Let's say that I went to my accountant and I said to my accountant, Mary, I'm going to start a new business. I'm really excited about this. And Mary says to me, well, David, that's great. How are you going to keep the records for it? And you say, oh, Mary, I've got this great idea. I'm going to have one piece of software keep track of my revenue and a totally different software track my expenses. And Mary, here's the best part. They're not even going to talk to each other. Mary would say to me, David, that's got to be the stupidest idea I've ever heard. I mean, there's no way that would work. And yet I just described every one of your practices. Dentistry is one of the very few businesses that has the accounting split like that, and in a way that the two sides really don't talk to each other. So I'm going to let you in on life's big secret about embezzlement. And this is how embezzlers think about your practice. So there are two kinds of dentists. There are those who take that report that comes out of their practice management software each day, and they confirm that the amount that went into the bank is the same amount that the software said should have gone into the bank. And there are those who don't look at the report at all, or look at something else on it. If you're in the first category, then the way that somebody can steal from you is simply by diverting a portion of the bank deposit. In other words, let's say that your practice takes in $7,200 today, but that number is not known to you. And I am your office manager. If I can give you $6,400 and you happily take it to the bank and deposit it, which means that $800 went into my pocket. If I can do that unnoticed, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Because that's simple theft. It doesn't require any intellectual capability on my part at all. I am simply doing it in front of your nose, and I don't have to do anything messy in your practice management software. So if you're not confirming that the amount of money that went into the bank is right, that's how you will be stolen from. And like I said, the dumbest thief on the planet can get away with that. On the other hand, if you are in the second cohort, you're the person who looks at the reports, I can still steal. But now my task is a little bit harder because I need to teach your practice management software how to lie. In other words, $7,200 actually came in, but I need to get your software to say that the amount received today was $6,400. In a public forum like this, I'm not going to discuss the how. If you have questions, I'll give you my contact information at the end, and you're free to have a one-on-one conversation with me about how this happens, but we won't be doing it here. So balancing is what your staff do. Reconciliation is what you do to check on the balancing. As I say, if there is no reconciliation, easy steal. What makes reconciliation a little bit challenging is what are called timing differences. So let's say that a patient pays you by credit card today. What happens is your practice management software records that as a deposit today, but it doesn't actually hit your bank for a couple of days. There's a little lag. So one of the challenges that dentists face, because they all want to go out the door today knowing I balance today, is you can't do that anymore. You actually need to come back a couple of days later and see if the right amount of credit card deposit went into your account. The other myth that I want to dispel is that when I talk to a lot of dentists about embezzlement, what's in their mind is the theft of $20 bills. And I really want to be clear about this. Cash is the first choice of every thief. It is the easiest to monetize. And what monetize means is turn into cash. So If we're starting with cash, that's easy. However, it is much easier than you probably think it is for somebody to cash a check with your name on it, to intercept credit card payments that patients make, and even to get electronic funds transfers to your bank account to be redirected somewhere else. Okay, and I have a lot of dentists when they start talking to me about this who say, well, you know, I'm not that vulnerable because really I don't take in that much cash anyway. And I say to them, okay, two things. First of all, you actually have no idea how much cash patients pay you. What you know is how much your staff turn over to you, which could conceivably be a different number. And secondly, doctor, if I worked at your front desk and I wanted more cash to come in, I would make that happen. In other words, it's not as if every patient shows up with only one possible way of paying you today, and they're not open to rethink it. So if I'm at your front desk and I say to a patient, you know, the doctor actually gives a 10% discount if you pay cash. So I'm happy to take your credit card, but you know, it might be worth your while to go to the ATM at the corner and take out the cash so I can give you the discount. And suddenly there's more cash coming in. Let's talk about hiring for a minute, because one of your best chances to stop embezzlement is not to hire what I call a serial embezzler. And the lady on the screen, whose name is Irina Fuchs, and she's gone by other names like Chernyakhovsky, is the Energizer Bunny of serial embezzling. And she happens to live right near Toronto. By my count, Irina has worked for at least 15 different practices, and she has stolen from every one of them. I've actually met her and have had several lengthy conversations with her. She is a raving sociopath. She's firmly convinced that by stealing money from doctors, she is protecting patients from those same greedy doctors. There's a little bit of a leap in logic there that I'll leave you to ponder on, but that's her. She was serving a prison sentence recently, but she'll be out soon. And this woman is absolutely dangerous. So how did she manage to get hired 14 times after she had already stolen from the first practice? The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is that dentistry has allowed itself to get out of step with how the rest of the world hires. And I'll give you a very simple example. I cannot get a job with FedEx delivering the junk that everybody buys on Amazon without a drug test. And yet I will bet you $100 I could get a job in your practice. And there are a number of differences between FedEx and your practice. One is that FedEx doesn't have prescription pads sitting in every delivery vehicle. So you are in a business where you have the ability to dispense controlled or to prescribe controlled substances, and you don't drug test staff. That makes no sense. Let's talk about what a proper screening is. And it starts with photo ID. So when you are interviewing somebody and you're considering hiring them, you need to check photo ID. One of the easiest ways for me to hide baggage when I'm applying for a job with you is to pretend to be somebody else. So when you're interviewing somebody, you say to them, I just need to check your driver's license or government issued photo ID, and I need a secondary piece of ID like a credit card or a library card or gym membership or something. And let's start by making sure that the person you're talking to is who they say they are. The most important thing you need to do when you hire is speak with former employers. That is the best predictor of what kind of employee this person is going to make. Now, my hint here is do not ever phone any phone number for a former employer that the applicant gives you, because disposable cell phones are really cheap and you could end up speaking to the applicant's aunt who pretends to be the last dentist. When somebody says they worked for Dr. Mark Smith in Winnipeg, Google's really cheap to use. Go online, find the number, and then you know you're actually speaking with Dr. Smith. Okay, we talked about this. If somebody's going to be handling money, we want to check their credit. Bad credit does not automatically mean do not hire this person. What it means is understand why they have bad credit and then decide if that poses a risk. So you're looking at hiring a single mom as a dental assistant and she has 2 kids and not getting any help from the dad. With what dental assistants get paid, she's guaranteed to have bad credit, and it probably wouldn't bother me. That's somebody who really needs the job. On the other hand, you're looking at hiring somebody to be your office manager, and her husband's the contractor, and they have the big house by the golf course and the 2 SUVs in the driveway, and they have bad credit. That absolutely terrifies me, because that's somebody who's living on other people's money. And when their other sources of OPM dry up, you're next. If somebody's working in a credentialed position like a dental assistant or a hygienist, we need to verify their credential, and we should never, ever accept a piece of paper from them as proof. You need to go back to the credentialing authority in your province and verify. In 2021, I won't hire anybody without taking a look at their social networking. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. There are a lot of things you can look for. Anti-employer sentiment is one. You know, the people bashing their current boss are going to do that to you next. Something a little more subtle is look at the time of day when people post. If they're posting when they're working, that's a time thief. And when you hire them, that's going to be the person who takes really extended bathroom breaks. And this one we should never skip is the criminal records check. And roughly 2 million Canadians, so that's about 1 in 10 adults, has a criminal record. Not every criminal record is a bar to employment. You know, if somebody had a marijuana possession from 20 years ago for something that's now legal, that probably wouldn't stop me from hiring them. But check fraud 2 years ago certainly would. The irony is, none of this stuff's very hard to get. And it's all sitting there in front of you. And unfortunately, most dentists end up making employment decisions on far less information than they could and should have. And that's when the mistakes happen. Let's talk about how embezzlement gets found out. And it's probably not how you think. And I'm going back to one of the studies that I mentioned early on, the first one that was done in 2007 by the ADA. And one of the questions they asked in that study was, what tipped you off? What let you know that your staff member was stealing from you? And there was a wide variety of answers that came out. Everything from my day-end report didn't balance to my bank deposit to, you know, I had a staff member who refused to take vacation. There was a real gamut to my accountant found it. What I did was I clumped the answers into 2 categories, being financial indicators of embezzlement and behavioral ones. And look what happened. More than 2/3 of embezzlement was revealed not because of some kind of financial anomaly, but because of the way that the thief was acting. And there's a lot of misinformation floating around on this topic. And, you know, there are a lot of people who have the best of intentions, but give you wrong information. And a lot of times what they do is they tell you, you need to look harder at this, when really there's a far more productive target for you. So that begs a question then. Well, if somebody is stealing, what does their behavior look like? A lot of things it could be, but I'll give you some of them. This came from one of our surveys that I'm going to bring up again. More than 20% of stealing employees were living beyond their means. A lot of them didn't want to take vacation, and they want alone time in the practice. When a thief is stealing, they want to be by themselves in your practice. So they will be the first one to arrive, or they'll stay late, or they'll kind of slide into the office on Saturdays to, quote, catch up on paperwork, but they want to be alone. Territoriality about their workspace. So this means they don't want anybody touching their computer. They don't want anybody sitting at their desk. A lot of times they will be sort of the teacher's pet when dealing with you and the bully when dealing with the rest of the staff. And a lot of times it's either bullying observed by the dentist or the other staff members come and complain about that bullying. One of my team, whose name is Amber Weber, Amber said something very profound a little while ago. She said that transparency is one of the first casualties of embezzlement. These are the people who, when you ask them a question, will give you an evasive answer and or the implied statement that, well, you would never understand this, doctor. Your employees, if you question them, should want to show you what's going on, and they should be able to explain what they're doing in their job in very clear terms to you. And if they don't seem to want to do that, that's a warning sign. And the biggest one, the single biggest warning sign of embezzlement in this survey was possessiveness about their duties. So this is somebody who could be run off their feet, but they don't want to offload any of their responsibilities to somebody else. And they also don't want to cross-train anybody else in any part of their job. Knowledge is power, and they don't want to create a situation where you say to them, well, Sally over there already knows how to do and enter insurance payments, so let's just give her that job. It's a whole lot easier for the thief if nobody but them knows how to do their job. That also puts you in the position typically where you're really scared to fire this person, because you know that a lot of institutional knowledge is going to walk out the door when you do it. So those are some of the warning signs. I'm actually going to give you a tool in a couple of minutes that will make evaluating how much somebody is acting like they're stealing much, much easier. So this is your homework assignment, and I'm going to break it into stuff that you really need to do yourself and things that you can delegate to somebody else. The non-delegated tasks really revolve around reports. And the first thing I'm going to say, and I know that some people in the audience won't really like to hear this, but you have to, is that the reports that you look at each day should be ones that you have printed yourself. As soon as you allow a staff member to print the reports that you rely on, what you open the door to is called selective reporting. In other words, you think that you're looking at the whole practice, but in fact, you're not. So when you print the report yourself, you have control over their parameters. PMS here, of course, means practice management software, not the other thing. And with that day end report that you have looked at and matched to your bank deposit, the next thing I want you to do is I want you to put your initials on it and then put it away, and I mean under lock and key, and keep it there for at least 3 years. Some of the things that people will do in your practice management software to cover up their stealing will cause a reprint of that report later to be different than the original. And the only way we can ever know that is if you keep the original. On a monthly basis, you have some things to do. And I've listed some reports, and I'm really using generic names for these. They may be called something a little bit different in your practice management software, but you'll get the idea. Almost all software has this thing called an audit log. The problem with the audit log is that it's massive. And if you looked at, if you printed the audit log for a year, it would probably, if you had a one dentist, one hygienist practice, it would likely be somewhere between 4,000 and 6,000 pages. So looking for anything in there is like looking for a lost penny on a golf course. But deleted transactions, modified transactions, adjustment report are three that isolate the high risk transactions in your practice. So monthly, you need to take a look at those. I know you all take a look at your receivables report because you're mad at those people who got dentistry and haven't bothered to pay you yet. I'd like you to look at the one you do now, but also print one filtering out the credit balances. Because a lot of times thieves will use credits to hide the fact that your AR is really growing and they just don't want you to see that. And the final report doesn't come from your practice management software at all. It comes from your alarm company. And it's called the access log or the entry log. And what that will show is, has anybody been kind of sneaking into your practice at weird times? Because that goes back to what I said about alone time. There are also some things that quite happily you can outsource, and you don't have to do these yourself. Now, when I say outsource, I do not mean to a staff member. I mean, this needs to go to somebody outside the practice, like a bookkeeper, an external accountant. If your spouse is willing and has the aptitude for this, you have a kid who's studying accounting, any of those would be good people to do it. And really what these three things involve is comparing practice management software. Two things involve comparing practice management software to what happened in the real world. So we want to compare our practice management software to the bank. And this can be done monthly. I mean, I think you should be taking a look daily, but once a month, somebody sits down with the bank statement, says, okay, here's how much went in. And they look at practice management software and confirm how much the practice management software said should have gone in to the bank. And also the merchant statements. So I'm not talking about the tape that comes out at the end of the day. I'm talking about the monthly statement. So again, this needs to be done, but you don't need to do it personally. I totally understand if you say, I didn't go to dental school to become an accountant. But if you don't look at these, you are opening the door to the stupidest, laziest thief you can imagine. I'm going to make you an offer. We have something that we sell called our Embezzlement Risk Assessment Questionnaire. It's a 40-question online questionnaire, and it really focuses on staff behavior. So it lets you look at how your staff are acting and whether they're acting in a way that suggests that they're stealing. And if you go back a couple of slides, that was the way that most embezzlement is discovered. So the questionnaire normally costs $139 US, but it's yours for nothing until March 31st. And all you need to do is send a link to that email address, requests@dentalembezzlement.com, and just ask for the assessment. And one of my team will send you a link to it. Takes, I would say, at the outside 15 minutes to complete. And at the end, you'll get a score, and the score will tell you what the likelihood is that somebody's stealing from you. If you want to talk to me, I'm happy to do it. Our toll-free number is there. You can also reach us through our website. Again, it's dentalembezzlement.com. And the only trick there is spelling embezzlement. But if you take a screen capture, and if you're on a Windows computer, you hit the Windows button and the one that's marked print screen at once, and it'll just take a picture and save it to your hard drive. I'd love to talk to you. On that note, we will stop our screen share, bring my picture back up, and if anybody's got questions for me, I would love to have them.
Thank you so much.
There we go. Thank you.
Well, good to have you, and good to be with this great group.
So we do have a question for you.
Okay, I'm disappointed there's only one question, because I dropped a lot of bombs there. Come on,
you probably
folks.
have people in disbelief.
Yeah, well,
Right.
Shake off your shock, free up those fingers, and type your darn question.
I was going to say, I think our audience may be a little freaked out, little. Anyway, so the first question that we have at the moment is, can reconciling the daily settlement report from the payment processing merchant to daily report help?
Okay, say that one again, Palak.
Can reconciling the daily settlement report from the payment processing merchant to daily report help?
You can do that, and those two will likely add up because they're generated by exactly the same process. So I can't conceive of a situation where they don't line up. What I'm concerned about is whether your practice management software lines up with what happened at the bank in your merchant account. So I want to look at the reports from practice management software versus the monthly statement from the merchant account. The other thing I'll say is, if your focus is a day, in other words, if you only look at whether today's report lines up with today's deposit and you don't look at monthly stuff at all, what thieves will decide to do very quickly is come in on a Saturday, put through a bunch of transactions, get a report at the end of the day, and then shred it. So monthly is important, or sorry, daily is important, monthly is essential. If you don't look at month ends, people will kind of create extra days that you don't know exist, and then they'll take advantage of them.
Interesting question.
Thank you, David. We have another question.
Oh, thank goodness.
They're starting to flood in now, David. That everybody
I was
cleared, and they've all used that home defibrillator.
Right. So the next question is there any practice management software that makes checking easier, or one that you recommend?
The problem with most practice management software is not the tool, it's the carpenter. any mainstream software, and there's some good Canadian software, there's lots of good software in the US. Any of it has the ability to generate far more information than you could ever meaningfully use. And when I look at some of the good things that EDMS can do for you, a huge one in my mind is the ability to kind of tame the monster and take this information overload and distill it down to what's really important for you. So as a kind of value add to your software, they're tremendous. So start there. The problem with most software is that it comes with these security features that people then quickly undermine. And most dentists really don't know nearly as much about their software as they should. So I tell a lot of dentists, that software is at least as important to your financial well-being as your handpiece is. And you all know that that handpiece, like it's your third arm. And when it comes to practice management software, it's kind of like, that's really somebody else's problem. It's not going away. That software is going to be with you for the rest of your career. Learn how to use it. If you as a dentist don't know how to go and print reports or look at an individual patient's ledger and understand what's happened on their account, you're just begging for somebody to steal from you. So let's acknowledge that this stuff is with you for life, and let's invest a little bit of time in learning how to use it, and you'll be a lot better off. But to answer the question, the information is there in almost every software. So there are different techniques for getting at it, sometimes different names of reports and things, but the basics are always there.
I'm going to just jump in there quick because, David, we had a situation with one of our engaged coaches where they were going through our reporting. As what we do, again, like you alluded to, is we siphon through all the numbers, look for all the anomalies and any red flag that may come up with calculation. And our coaches identified this and then took a deeper dive and actually contacted you to have another look at it. Yeah. And maybe I'll get Angie if she's on to speak to that, because the reporting that we do is very concise and very much shows up anything, any anomaly, any red flags, anything out of the ordinary. And our coaches are monitoring that 24/7. And we have algorithms that are monitoring any of that may go unnoticed in the practice, or a dentist may never know for, like you said, 2 years and $500,000 to $1 million later. So Angie, if you want to just maybe touch on what you discovered just by accident when you were going through reporting, and then actually David was brought in without mentioning names.
Yes, absolutely. There was it was because actually my partner Karima and I, it wasn't not myself alone. We were looking at some reports because we found it kind of unusual that there was this massive amount of adjustment pages when we're looking at the reports, and we thought two things: either they're the most incompetent people working at the front desk that they have to do that many adjustments, or something funky was going on. So just to make sure, we did bring on our CEO, Peter Evans, to take a deeper look at, did it match with the ledger? And when we found there that something was not quite right, that's when I called in the big guns, the experts, the big kahuna to come get out for us, because we know that if anybody could find out what was going on and get to the bottom of it, it would be him. We don't know exactly where we're at with that, but I do know that he did take the survey. So from there, we're kind of handed it off into the expert hands of David Harris. But one of the things that I want to also convey is that the thing that's so valuable about EDMS is that you're able to look at Dentalytics from your iPhone, from your cell phone, and you can go ahead and go on vacation and be sipping on a margarita in the beaches of Mexico when the airport's open, and still have your finger on the pulse of your practice.
Or if you're a politician, Angie, you can just go now.
I'm sorry, yeah.
If you're a politician, you can just go now.
Hey, right, isn't that true?
Travel, essential.
It is.
I don't know if you want to add to that.
A couple of,
one thought that comes to mind, sorry, David, sorry to interrupt there, but when Angie and I were analyzing this case study before we approached you, David, was I asked Angie the question, what is this office manager like? And dead on to all the points you discussed with us today, David. Angie, would you agree? That yes,
Yes.
she was evasive, she was defensive, she was very territorial,
Yeah.
and the red flag went up. So I think that was two bits I wanted to add to that. It connected for Angie and I. That no, this needs to be escalated.
One thing I'll mention to the audience is if you work with a consultant, be it with EDMS or the competitors.
Easy.
Yeah, I know. You know, if you work with a consultant and they tell you there's a problem in this area, take it seriously, because their instincts are very seldom wrong about this. You know, and they spend a lot of time in practices, and they certainly have the ability, as Karima says, to see somebody who's not being transparent. And you know, the thief can probably baffle you with bullshit, if you'll pardon the expression. But people like Angie and Karima are a little harder to throw that kind of curveball at. The other thing I'll mention is, if you ever ask us to take a look at your practice, it is done in a way that there's no possibility your staff will know that we're doing it. So it is 100% stealthy. And the final thing I'll mention is, we also do, to take a word out of your vocabulary, prophylactic work with practices, where we help ensure that their systems are as protective as they should be. And I'm not just talking about within practice management software, I'm talking generally. So if you don't think you're at risk of embezzlement at the moment, but you want to protect yourself long-term, we're happy to have a conversation with you about how that could happen.
And if I can just add to that, I think that, you know, David, you bring a service to the industry that's just, you know, unmeasurable. I mean, just so powerful and so profound in the difference, you know, because I mean, look at the amounts that you're talking about. And I know that we read about the St. Catherine's one because it was all over the newspapers. It was on the internet and everything. And the amount of you know, hit that a dentist that has worked so hard all their life to, you know, have the practice that they have is just, you know, you can't even put words to it. You can't put the feeling that you know, person may be, you know, going through. And I think that the hardest part, you know, that you spoke about was when you spoke about, you know, the different people. A lot of times, a lot of dentists have a blind trust. Well, they've been with me for 20 years. Well, they've been with me for 25 years. They would never. And like you said, sometimes it could be a need. You know, acts of desperation take people to measures that they would probably not dream of ever doing. So
it's interesting, Angie. You say that, it's interesting how we humans deal with the question of trust.
Yeah.
And when you meet somebody at first, you know, and back in the pre-COVID days when you shook their hand, you know, the question you asked yourself at that moment was, can I trust this person? And if the answer you came up with then was yes, what we want to do as humans is kind of put it away and never, ever come back and revisit that question. Yeah. And what you're saying, and what I've told dentists for years, is trust needs to be a more fluid concept than that. People change, people's circumstances change, and people's behavior change in response to those things. So somebody who is trustworthy today may not be in 5 years for many, many, many reasons. And, you know, it just goes somewhat against our human nature to continually pull that trust out of the closet and reevaluate it. And, you know, some of the thefts we see are for very long-term employees who have been there almost forever. And one morning they come in and start stealing. And, you know, it may be that they just had their 60th birthday and they're looking at how much money's in their RRSP and they're not happy about it. And they say, you know, there's no pension plan here at the dental practice where I work. And, you know, if I don't want to eat dog food at retirement, I have to change what I do. And, you know, we also have a lot of dentists who sort of have what I call the immunity fallacy. You know, and if this were a live audience, I mean, you'd see some people sitting here with their arms folded and their face tight. You know, you might even see a little bit of bruxism. And what it's all saying is, well, it might happen to you on my left and it might happen to you on my right, but I'm immune. And they'll come up with lots of reasons why. You know, my staff have been with me forever, as you say. I live in a small town, and really embezzlement is an urban problem. You know, it happens in Toronto where you hire somebody who doesn't, you know, who you don't really know, but all my staff used to be my patients growing up, you know. Or one of my favorites is my wife is my office manager, and we see actually a surprising amount of spousal embezzlement. And when it happens, of course, it's an antecedent to divorce. So I work for my wife, who's a dentist, and I'm about to leave her. And I go see one of those horrible creatures called a divorce lawyer. And they're going to say to me, okay, David, so all your money comes from your wife, the dentist. When you tell her that you're leaving, what do you think she's going to do? I mean, is she going to keep you working there as her office manager? And I say, not a chance. So my lawyer is going to say to me, I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but I'm going to tell you what you have to do. You need money under the mattress, because when you drop the bomb on your wife, she's going to fire you. You have to find a new place to live. You have to, you have to buy groceries, and nothing personal, Angie, but you have to also pay me, your blood-sucking divorce lawyer.
Yes.
So they start stealing and putting the money under the mattress.
Absolutely. And a lot of it has to do with cognitive dissonance that, they've been brought up.
Those
to
are big words.
Yeah, well,
To
it's something that we've, grown up all our life to believe. And the perfect example would be if we grew up all our life thinking that all redheads, and please excuse me, I'm not targeting redheads if there's any online right now, but let's just say that I'm using that as an example, that those are bad people. We're going to spend all our life avoiding those people, but then all of a sudden we meet one that is just the nicest redhead we've ever met, and our brains have a hard time with it. So that's the same thing that happens when we've learned to trust this employee for so many years, but they take care of our kids, and they're like a grandma or an auntie.
The work spouse.
Yeah, and their brains can't handle it. It's very difficult to reconcile that this person that you've built so much trust in might be defrauding you.
There's one more kind of sensitive topic that I'll mention in terms of embezzlement, and it's one that we don't like to talk about, but let's put it on the table. My company, we have, I think our current number of investigators is 17. And so we have about 110 active cases at any point in time. So that's what we're working on right now. Typically of those 110 or so, usually somewhere between 8 and 10 involve embezzlement where the suspect is another dentist in the practice.
Wow.
So you have a group practice, and typically in a group practice, there's one dentist who looks after the finances. If it's two dentists, one will tend to be the clinical lead and one will be the financial lead. And a lot more than we would want to believe, something goes wrong in there. I mean, one of the funniest phone calls I ever got in my whole life came years ago from this guy. He phoned me. He said, I'm an orthodontist it was on the eastern seaboard of the US. I'm an orthodontist in wherever, New Jersey. And I practice with another orthodontist. And we have this arrangement where when patients come in and pay in cash, we just put it in our pockets and we don't tell the IRS. The IRS is kind of the US version of the Canada Revenue Agency. And that was fine. I really didn't know where the conversation was going, but then he said something that just sat me back on my heels when he said, and the reason that I'm calling you, David, is that I think that my partner is stealing more than I am.
Next.
And
Next.
I just couldn't make words. I mean, anyway, that was what he said. And he was right. Over 5 years, his partner had pocketed, it's about $200,000 more.
Wow.
And it's tempting to assume that somebody who shares your education and your code of ethics is not going to do this. One of my team talks about this thing called pink collar crime. And what she means by that is really theft by low-level employees, kind of lower middle class crime, if you want. And it's tempting to think that that's what embezzlement is. And certainly in many cases it is, but there's also this other side to it where, as I say, it happens by a dentist in the practice, or, it's maybe a multi-office practice, and there's a chief financial officer who has a professional designation and stuff, and that's the embezzler. We do some work for the big DSOs, and we've got 8 open files with 1 DSO right now. So it can happen anywhere, and there is no immunity card. There's no set of circumstances where I will say to a member of the audience, and I apologize for telling you this, but where I can say, you know what, it's never going to happen to you. So just like Ronald Reagan said once, trust but verify.
Trust and verify. Very, very sobering, but very valuable and important information. And I think what's interesting tonight is we have captured multiple facets of what we do every day in our business, and going right back to what this Money Talks in 2021 and the production and the operation side with Angie and Karima, and then with Amy and her team talking about what do we do with that money to invest it, and David being very straightforward and very clear and pointed about how do we protect that money and how do we protect ourselves from embezzling. I want to thank the audience. We've gone well over 2 hours, and I would say that about 98% of them, I'm looking at the numbers, have stuck with us. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for participating with us, audience. I know Palak probably has one last poll that we'll do on this, so get the feel and the audience participation. Palak, you can go for that. Are you ready to protect everybody? This should be unanimous. Yes.
Oh, sorry, I said no.
I said no.
And we want to, shout out also to all our viewers, because we are live on Facebook, and, we have quite a bit of people watching us there, not just the people that are here on the webinar. So shout out and hello to all them as well.
We thank everybody. My team, I thank you for doing an amazing job tonight. Amy and your team, and David, as always, it's a great pleasure. And the one thing that we're looking forward to at EDMS is to take this, 100% are ready to protect. Fantastic. Our next step is to continue to reach out to our audiences, continue to help grow this dental business, which is so dear to all of us, because if it's successful, we're all successful. And EDMS is starting a live series that will be called Engaging With. And we will no doubt reach out to the panelists on this show to come on to that show, which will be more of a one-on-one roundtable where we're discussing different things that are going on in the industry right now, how we're coming out of COVID, what we're doing to survive, creating cohesive teams, leadership, that type of thing going forward. So I want everyone to stay tuned, and please watch out for Engaging With, and the names that'll follow that will be different people in the dental industry, key influencers outside of our business. And right now, it's a time of community. It's a time for us all to come together so that we can survive and thrive in 2021 and beyond. So to this panel tonight, and to Palak, thank you for directing me and poking me with your little emails there to keep this thing rolling. I had a great time doing this with all of you. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. To the people that stuck with us, all 98% of you, till the end of the webinar, thank you. I'll say goodnight for the panel. I'm Mark Gaylord, I'm the business director for EDMS Dental. Thank you again for joining us.